Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Torah Lechaim with your host, Rabbi Anibal. It's been a while, so happy to be back after all the holidays and everything. Ooh, feels like forever. But I'm back. I'm back. For now, we continue with the online-only format. It's still trying to figure out how to do it differently, but there is so much movement in this building and the new building that I don't feel it's ready yet to do it. In fact, the room that I was going to use for the hybrid format is being used now to store things until they decide where to put it. So please be patient. Okay, so welcome. Who's here? Brenda and David Grossman, Shelly Chochinov, and Brenda, your office. Oh, thank you. Yeah, I can see that there is a little angle there. Hold on. It looks like this, maybe? Look a little out of level. That's probably my monitor. I have the camera on top of it. So, yeah, I have my piano already set up. Beautiful table behind to meet with people. It's pretty cool. Pretty cool. Yes. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. It's very comfortable. I finished installing all my new gear. So hopefully the audio will be fine because it's a new mixer that I have today. Everything is so fancy. Can't even start explaining to you. But I love it. I love it. So, yeah. Welcome, everyone. We're going to go back to the cycle of the Parsha of the week, which even when we were having the classes before the break, we weren't really studying about the Parsha. We were studying about the holidays, right? We did Rosh Hashanah, we did Yom Kippur. It was great. It was great. But it's good also to go back to the cycle. And this week's Parsha is Lech Lecha. And it's the first Parsha in the book of Genesis that speaks to us, right? It speaks to us because it's the story of Abraham and Sarah. It's the beginning of everything. They weren't Jewish, but they were the first steps towards the Judaism that we know in these days. So that's why it's so important to study about their lives. In fact, the rabbis insist that we should study and look closely on the life of Abraham and Sarah because it contains what they call the DNA of Judaism. Okay? It's interesting because they weren't Jewish yet. Judaism didn't exist. But that was the beginning. That was the beginning. Hi, Shelley. He said, audio is great. I always like when people say audio is great. It's this is a rule that I learned when I started to stream back 4 years ago when we went into the pandemic. I watched countless of hours of these big streaming gurus around the world, and they all agree on one thing. And people sometimes they were caught off guard with this advice, which is audio is always more important than video. Okay, video is fancy, but it's kind of gimmicky. You don't really need fancy video to attend this class, for example. Audio and to be able to hear what the teacher says is more important than the audio. It's great to have both. I feel like here I have both. Have a fancy camera, but most important, fancy microphone, and even most important because you can have the best microphone in the world, which is useless if you don't have a good way to capture that sound and put it into the computer and then to stream it, right? So that's the thing. So we are going to begin to study about the life of Abraham and Sarah and Parsha Lech Lecha. Okay, so without further ado, let's do it. Now, this is the beginning of everything. Vayomer Adonai el Abraham Lech Lecha. This is the name of the parsha. Lech Lecha. Me'artzecha, umimoladetecha, umibeit avicha, el haaretz asher areka. Let me read it for you. God said to Abram, remember, it wasn't Abraham yet. That was my mistake when I read it in Hebrew. It wasn't Abraham, it was Abram. Eventually, as part of the covenant between God and Abram, his name is going to be changed to Avraham, which will be the father of father of many nations. Okay? But so far, there was no such thing. Maybe one day we should have a class like that to study the power of names in Judaism, which is very important. You will see that even if we don't realize that, names in the Torah describe the mission of the name bearer. Something that if you read it in English, you won't get that. But when you read it in Hebrew, if you understand a little bit of Hebrew, you will realize that every name given to a biblical character is a description, in a nutshell, of course, but it's a description of their mission in life. So, for example, Abram, right? But eventually, when his mission was to be the father of many nations, God said, your name will be Abraham. So the name that you have, it's a reminder of your mission. Okay, especially the Hebrew names. So when we name our children in Hebrew, it's a responsibility to choose carefully the names we give them. So God said to Abram, go forth from your native land and from your father's house to the land that I will show you. The first thing that I always like to point out here when we learn this is why the need of all this seemingly unnecessary list of places. Because God could say to Abram, go forth from your native land. Okay? Or even better, if you say, well, but if he goes out of the native land, he can go, to the border, or and they said that's why they said from your father's house. Or maybe the Torah should say just that: get out from your father's house. Okay? It's like that. But the Hebrew uses three different descriptions. It said me'artzecha, from your land, umimoladetecha, from the place that you were born, umibeit avicha, from your father's house. Three different things. And this is something that if you are not living where you were born, like me, I was born in Argentina. Actually, it should be more precise. I was born in Buenos Aires, right? But if you're not living where you were born, you understand that sometimes you can leave your place, but never really leave your place, right? And I heard this many times, that people live in other places in the United States, on Europe, on Asia, but they will tell you, oh, I never left Winnipeg. Winnipeg is always my home, right? And if that's one of you, let me know in the chat. Let me know in the chat. Welcome, Daniel B. Welcome to the class. So basically what God is telling Abraham is, I need you to leave, but it has to be a complete detachment from your past, which is not easy. It's not easy. In the sense that, Abraham, there is nothing for you there. So don't insist on getting attached to your past. You need to completely get rid of that so you can have all the space, emotional, intellectual, physical, for your future. Okay, very, very important. But I heard this many times from Winnipeggers, that they say that they live somewhere else, but they never left Winnipeg. Yeah. Hello, Priscilla. Welcome. Welcome to the class. Okay. So this is one of the things with Abraham and go from your land. Yeah. And again, Can you imagine the level of faith in God that Abraham need to have to accept the challenge to go? Because Abraham will ask God, okay, I'm leaving. Where? No answer. But can you tell me where we're going? So, well, I'll show you, but can you give me a hint? No, no. Just completely leave behind where you are, where you know, what you learned. The relationships, leave them behind and be open to a new experience. But what experience? A new experience. Don't think too much about it. Keep your mind open and you will see. You will see. Yeah, Shelley, you said the place of one childhood has certain resonance in the heart. Yeah, Brenda, you say Winnipeg has many fond memories that always make it feel like home, even though I currently classify text. Yeah, yeah. But you see, but this thing of leaving everything behind is not necessarily in most cases, because we all have good things in the places where we were born. I hope. I hope. So it is okay to keep that attachment. But in the case of Abraham, it's implied that was nothing worth to keep. Nothing worth to keep. So basically God said, leave everything behind. Everything. Okay? So, yeah. Let's continue. How do I... Here. Sorry guys, everything changed on the software that I use. Here we go. Here we go. So let's read what Maimonides will say about the opening of our parsha. Okay, he says, after this prodigious child was weaned, this, and now Maimonides is talking about Abraham, and he was trying to explain why would God chose Abraham, because the Torah never says. The Torah never says why Abraham was chosen by God to leave everything behind and to start a new culture, a new nation. It doesn't say. So, but Maimonides will say, I mean, if you read all his writings and many of the rabbis, that there are hints. There are hints in the Torah describing Abraham's character, and then the more you read about Abraham, you will realize that he was the right choice. But the problem is, all these hints are not coming together on the same parsha, on the same Torah portion. So you have to keep reading, many, many chapters until you can have a better picture of who Abraham was. But for now, let's see what Maimonides have to say. And this is heavily based on the Midrash, okay? So Maimonides says, after this prodigious child, he was amazing. Maimonides realizes that Abraham was one in a kind, one in a million, since childhood, was weaned. He began to muse. While he was still young and started to ponder by day and by night and would question how it was possible for the earth to continue to revolve without a guide. So right out of the bat, what he would say is Abraham was not afraid of think by himself. He probably learned many things in his native land. Many things, as he will tell about the history of earth, about the gods that rule earth, and many other things. And Abraham started to doubt all that and said, I don't buy it. I don't buy it. So he started to observe and to learn by observing. And I know this is one of the things that is perhaps is the slowest way of learning, when you have to figure things out. In this generation, we are incredibly blessed that we don't have to do that. We have countless of teachers and mentors that they already do the research, so we can go back to their research and learn it from them. But Abraham didn't have that, so he had lots of things to figure out by himself. And I was thinking, if you think about Noah, for example, at the time of the flood, where did he learn his ethics? Where did he learn his morals? If the Torah says that everybody else was evil to the point that everybody was wiped out with the flood, I always wonder how these people were able to figure out what was right and what was wrong. Have you ever thought about that? They didn't have any guidance. But yet, Noah figured out. Okay, anyway, let's continue. Let's continue with Abraham. You see, Maimonides says, he had no mentor. Abraham had no mentor, nor did anyone reveal anything to him, but he was immersed in Ur Kasdim, that's his city, Ur Kasdim, among foolish idolaters. His father and mother and all the people serve idols, like everybody else in those days. And he should serve with them, while his heart pondered and mused, until he understood the path of truth and realized the line of justice by virtue of his own correct reasoning. And I love this because it gives so much hope to humanity, saying that humanity has what it takes to figure out what is right and what is wrong. We don't need that much guidance. It's almost like somebody's telling us, come on, guys, come on. You know what is right and what is wrong. So why do you do that if you know it? So then he came to understand that there was only one God, and that he, God, was the guide of the celestial wheel. He created everything, and that there is no God among all of creation other than him. Now, think about this. There is also lots of information in the Torah to figure out that Abraham was some sort of also a astrologer. You know, when you try to figure things out by studying the alignment of the planet and things. How do we know that? Because when God wanted to reassure Abraham about his legacy, God said to him, get out of your tent and look at the sky, look at the stars. And then I always wonder, why would God say that to Abraham? God, look at the stars. See if you can count them, and so forth. And I'm always wondering if that was the last bit of quote unquote native land that Abraham was not able to leave behind. This trying to find all the answers in the stars. Because God said, go outside, look at the stars, see if you can count them. So that, what are you doing looking at the stars? It's very interesting, very interesting. So, but at the same time, it's implied, because all those things is what created this Midrashim that Maimonides is quoting here. The fact that by looking at the stars, Abraham figured out that it was a creator and so forth. Okay? So, this is one thing. Any comments? Any questions? Let me know in the chat. Why did David Grossman, let's see. Why did Maimonides leave Spain? Was he forced to leave because of persecution? Well, he wanted to go to Israel, actually. It was very common in those days for many rabbis eventually to go to the Promised Land. And he tried, but he didn't make it. He died. He died in Egypt. Okay? It was a sad end when he wanted to settle in Israel. And although I'm not an expert on Maimonides' life, what I can say is that he was close to both Muslim and Christian leaders in Europe. And as a physician, he was close to the authorities, and he was respected. Okay? Priscilla, you said Abraham had any idea of who God was before he felt the call. Yeah, but that's the key word. He had an idea. He had an idea, and but this is what we have to understand. I don't know how to say it. For we have so many biases when we read this text, and we feel that God spoke to Abraham like like we imagine in the movies when it said, Abraham, this is your God, right? Stuff like that. I don't really think that it was like that, um, because eventually the Torah will say that the only time that God spoke like that to somebody was to Moses. So if God didn't speak directly to Abraham, how did Abraham know all the things he knew? Well, actually, Maimonides will explain that in another text. That how you say? I lost the word. I lost the word. Anyway, but yeah, Abraham had an idea of God. Let's go back to that. He had an idea. He didn't have a complete picture. Oh, I was saying about listening to the voice of God. It was Maimonides will explain. That's what I want to say. The writings of Maimonides. Maimonides explained that the only time that God spoke directly to an individual was to Moses. All the others, yes, the Torah says that they heard the voice of God, but it was more like either a dream or yeah, or Shelley, as you said, this subliminal idea, this strong gut feeling of what to do, and they had this also the strong feeling that it was God guiding them. So it's interesting. We said, Abraham, your name is going to be Abraham. If we take the words of the Torah seriously, in the sense that God didn't speak to Abraham with a voice the way God spoke to Moses, so basically Abraham had either a dream that his name was Abraham, or this strong feeling that the name of Abraham, and he told everybody, hey, from now on, my name is Abraham. But we don't usually read the Bible that way. We prefer, for some reason, to imagine that God is actually a voice talking to Abraham. Have you ever thought about that? Have you ever thought about that? Probably not. But yes, the voice of God sounds like, this is the voice of God. Right? We imagine with an echo and everything. Okay. So hello, Bailey. Welcome to the class. You're never late. You're never late. Nobody's ever late. And remember, if you miss parts of the class, you can always replay it after the class is over. It stays on YouTube and Facebook, or you can catch it again 8 p.m. Central Time on Thursday. I restream the whole thing. Okay, so good questions, guys. I loved it. I love that. I like when you guys participate on the chat. It makes it interactive. I really like that. Let's continue analyzing the life of Abraham. Okay, so those were the words of Maimonides. Now, let's read what the Maharal of Prague have to say about Abraham. I have to warn you right out of the bat, the Maharal was a mystic. Maimonides was not a mystic. Maimonides was a rationalist. Always remember that. Okay? So I like this because you can have different layers by reading different authors if you know what was their favorite way of analyzing the Bible. So for Maimonides, his favorite ways was using rational or sometimes even philosophical tools, while the Maharal of Prague is mostly explaining the Torah, sharing the mystic teachings that he learned. So let's listen what he has to say. The Maharal said, so, It concerning Abraham Avinu, which means Abraham our father, the foundation stone of the world, who was born in the land of Kasdim, of whom it is written that God regrets their creation daily, for they are a nation of Tohu, an incomplete creation. Remember, Tohu is talking about the creation of the world in the book of Genesis. Before that, there was light. Before God said that it was light, the Torah says that the world was Tohu Vavohu, usually translated as chaos or emptiness, and there is no really, we don't really know what it is because that word never appears again in the Torah. So we don't have any way to learn the meaning by analyzing a different context. Okay, so but in this case, in the words of the rabbis, of the mystics, they will say that the people of Kasdim were so bad that they weren't even tohu vavohu. You know, it's just tohu. Even not even even within the chaos, they weren't even complete, which is probably a very powerful description of something absolutely dysfunctional. Okay, try to imagine something that a machine, even if it's a machine to do bad or to do good or whatever, if it's incomplete, it's not even a machine. It's not even a bad machine. So the city of Kasdim is described as something really, really, really dysfunctional. And then we cannot be surprised that God said to Abraham, get the heck out of there. Okay? And don't even look back. Forget everything about it. The closest thing that I can think in this generation is when we describe a place as a toxic place. It's a very useful expression used by many people in these days. Toxic place, toxic people, right? Tohu. Yeah, the Maharal, we call it Tohu. We call them toxic. Let's continue. That Abraham was born in Ur Kasdim is a great matter, for just as Abraham was the beginning of the world, and before him everything was tohu, without any creation at all, therefore Abraham was joined to Kasdim, which was a creation without substance. For every beginning has nothingness before it, and in proximity to it, which is why it is a beginning. So, what the Maharal of Prague is saying is, Abraham was the whole story of Abraham is what's the word here? A metaphor of the creation of the world. Think of it this way, because we have the 1, 2, 3. First, we have the creation of the world. The one in Genesis, the very beginning, God said, "Let it be light," at the first act of creation. And that light ended Tohu Vavohu. Okay? Then there was the second story, which is the story of Noah, where God had to destroy the world again, and Noah was the beginning of a new creation again. But it looks like that project wasn't successful again. So now we have one more project, which is the project of Abraham. So that's why the Maharal of Prague called Abraham the foundation of the world, right, and the light of the world, because he was in a place where it was tohu vavohu, and then when God said, "Let it be light," that is represented by the light, the life of Abraham. Abraham came to bring light. Let me read the last paragraph. For this reason, Abraham was not born in another land, for then he would not have been a beginning. Because Abraham was a beginning, he was born in a place where a beginning was fitting or needed. For before a beginning, there is nothingness. Ha! What a powerful statement by the Maharal of Prague. And yes, Maharal is a mystic, but I don't think there is anything mystical about this text. To me, at least, it's very easy to understand. The world where Abraham was born was dark, toxic. Abraham was a little bit of light within that world and represented a new beginning. Okay? Which is interesting that God said, leave that place, because you will expect, okay, stay there, share your light, but there was the darkness was unredeemable at that time. So Abraham needed to live there to grow, and to grow first, to be able to shed even more light everywhere. Okay, so let's continue. Now, I like how Rambam, the Maimonides, he had a comment about the Torah, but now we have rabbis making a comment about, or writing a comment about the Rambam, what the Rambam said about the Torah. These multiple layers in Judaism is a fascinating thing. One rabbi talking about the Torah, then another rabbi talking about the rabbi who talk about the Torah, and then you will have another rabbi talking about the rabbi who talk about the rabbi who talk about the Torah, and then you will have somebody like me talking about all of the above, right? That is a way. That is the right way to connect with Judaism, when we can analyze all these layers to understand better things in the Torah. Welcome, Josué Rivera. Good morning. Welcome to the class. Okay, so let's see what the rabbi have to say. Rambam stresses the fact that Abraham came to the true vision of God that allowed him to overcome the ancient human mistake of idolatry all on his own, totally unaided. It was in recognition of the greatness of this achievement and the correctness of Abraham's vision that God elevated Abraham to the level of prophecy and gave him the ultimate recognition of communicating with the divine personally. So in other words, it's like God was waiting for Abraham, or somebody like Abraham, that how can I say this? God was eager to communicate with humanity. God was probably trying to speak, so to speak, because remember, it wasn't literal speaking. To speak, God was trying to speak with someone to partner with that person to shed light over humanity. Trying it for multiple generations. In fact, the rabbis will say that there were 10 generations from Noah to Abraham. So 10 generations, God was trying to establish a relationship with someone. It's almost like, someone up in the balcony looking down the street and said, "Hello, anybody there? I'm here." Nobody was looking up. Nobody. So eventually, Abraham was able to say, okay, idols out, right? There is a creator of the world. And this is a creator that is in control of the world. And this creator who created the world is still there. And so Abraham looked up, so to speak, and there was God talking to him. And finally, Abraham was able to listen to the voice of God. And this is something very powerful. The concept that God is always there, trying to establish a relationship with us. God is trying to establish a relationship with everybody around the world. The problem is that we don't answer the call. It's like having our cell phones, and if you have it all the time and do not disturb, then you will start having people who said, "How come you didn't answer me?" Didn't answer you what? I sent you 500 emails and text messages, and I called you. Oh, sorry, I wasn't do not disturb. Well, looks like many people were on do not disturb back then, except for Abraham. So that's why Abraham was able to communicate with God. Shelley Jochnov, you say, so Hashem was waiting for the right person who she could work with. Yep, that's what I believe. You say too much noise, so we aren't listening. Yes, yes, yeah. You can call it noise. I rather call it do not disturb. Probably the I don't know. Some people will say it's the best invention ever on cell phones, and some other who say it's the worst invention because people don't answer now. Right? It's very easy to block. So let's continue. Now let's go to the Midrash Rabbah now. Midrash Rabbah now is trying to get into Abraham's head because if we learned before that Abraham was able to figure out things, how did he do that? What was the thread of thoughts that allow him to go from worshiping idols to believing in God? How did it all started? Well, this is Genesis Rabbah, this is Midrash Rabbah, is trying to guess that very beginning. And it goes like this. Rabbi Yitzchak taught, it is comparable, so the life, also the discovery of God by Abraham is comparable to somebody who traveled from place to place and saw a burning palace. He said, the tower cannot be without a leader. Then the master of the tower appeared to him and told him, I am the master of the palace. So Abraham Avinu said, can the world be without a leader? God appeared to him and told him, I am the master of the world. So this midrash was explained in many different ways. I love this because the Torah is cryptic, and then the text to explain the Torah is also cryptic, because this text is saying that there was a palace that it was burning. What does it mean it's burning? It's about to be destroyed, right? So are you telling me that Abraham also saw a world that it was burning and in the path of destruction? Is that what it's implying? So what the rabbis explain about this text, it's when he saw that there was fire on a palace. He said, basically we're thinking, it's a fancy palace. It has to be a leader. It has to have an owner. How come they don't extinguish the fire? Right? If it's a big palace, probably they have the resources to extinguish the fire. And then he continued thinking, okay, hold on a minute. So maybe this fire that I see on that tower is not an accident. It's a fire that they're using for something. It makes sense. And then basically the master of the tower appeared to him and told him, yeah, I am the master of the palace. I have everything under control. This fire that you see is not really a fire to destroy. Some interpretations of the text say that fire is used to illuminate the place. In the case of the world, we also look at the world and we feel that it's in flames, it's burning, right? And then you say, well, hold on a minute. The world was created, right? And it's a great world. It's fancy. It's somebody created the world. It has to be somebody with unlimited resources. So you're telling me that the creator of the world is letting the world burn? Or maybe there is a meaning for all this that I consider burning. It has to be some kind of order. It has to be a reason, a meaning. So God appeared to Abraham and said, I am the master of the world. And yes, there is a reason, there is a meaning. Let me tell you. Let me teach you the ways of the world. And this is something that we all try to figure it out, and I believe it's one of the one of the main things of religion, trying to understand how God relates to the world and what are the rules of the world, right? But Abraham started from that. He said, look, I look around in the world, everything looks chaotic, right? There is misery, there is illness, there is so much there. So does it mean that there is no one in control, right? But look at all the things that Abraham was able to rationalize. He had all these questions. Shelley, you said, is the fire a beacon of light to illuminate? We don't really know all that. And again, if you go to Midrash Rabbah, there are different interpretations of this thing, all the way from it is a fire, but it's a controlled fire with a meaning, to the interpretation that it says it's not really fire. Abraham noticed a light, right? And then when you see a house and you see a light inside, then the first thing you think is, oh, it's probably there is somebody inside the house. This house belongs to somebody. And then when God appeared, he said, yes, 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 yes. The world belongs to me. That's another interpretation of the same midrash. But this trying to explain that Abraham thinking about the ways of the world started by trying to figure out that there is a creator. Number two, not only that there is a creator, the creator is still there. It's not that God created the world and then goodbye, good luck. God stayed there in control. Those were I would say, basic theological principles of Abraham. And then in which way and how God related to the world, that will come after, with many other things. Okay? Let's continue. Now, let's go to the Talmud. This is a Babylonian Talmud, Tractate Berachot, page 7b. Rabbi Yochanan taught, in the name of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, from the day that God created the world, no human being called God master, until Abraham came and called him master. As it said, he said, my master, Lord, with what shall I know that I will inherit it? This is very interesting. And we don't usually think about these little things. How did Abraham know to call God master? Yet that's the word the Torah uses. Okay? Because you say, well, maybe he learned it from, I don't know, maybe and there are theories, and I said this in one of the sermons, there are theories that if you consider the ages of the early inhabitants of the world, then it should be an overlap between Abraham and Noah. Okay? Because Noah was still one of those people who lived like 900 years. So, maybe he learned it from Noah, because Noah walked with God and Noah witnessed the flood and so much more, right? Noah also figured things out by himself. Maybe, but Noah never called God master. So this is something that Abraham figured out, to call God my master, right? In the sense that you are the one in control. That's what is novel here. These are little pieces of theology that we learn from the text. From now on, we know not only that God is the creator. We already learned that with the beginning of Genesis. God created, God said, let it be light, but also that God is in control in every generation. So Abraham says, so you're in control of the world, you're also in control of my life. So I belong to you, so you are my master. And that's why the word he's using here. The Talmud have really acknowledged that. Now, the other thing that we learn from Abraham, and this is something that we have to learn, is listen to this text, also from the Parsha. It says, a fugitive brought the news to Abraham the Hebrew, Abraham ha-Ivri. That is the way the Torah is talking about Abraham. And we have to understand why he's called this way. Abraham the Hebrew, the Ivri. Ivri. This is a word that is going to appear other times in the Torah. Who was the other one? Noah. No, Noah. What's the name? Yonah. Yonah. The Haftorah we're reading on the Mincha of Yom Kippur, when he said, Ivri Anochi, I'm a Hebrew. Ivri Anochi ve'et Hashem Elohei Hashemayim ani yareh, and I fear the God of the master of the heavens, right? So he also uses this word, I'm a Hebrew, Ivri, Ivri. Now, listen to this. Fugitive brought the news to Abram the Ivri, who was dwelling at the terebinth of Mamre the Amorite, kinsman of Eshcol and Aner, these being Abraham's allies. Now, why Ivri? Why Ivri? Why are we Hebrews? Why was Abraham a Hebrew? What is that? Where is that from? Where is coming from? Okay, so let's try to understand. So, technically, Abraham is called the Ivri, meaning the one who comes from the other side of the river. Okay, me'ever me'ever ayam, from the other side of the river. Okay, so it could imply that he was born in the other side of the Jordan River, for example. Okay, so this is a guy who came from the other side, so that was the nicknames of people coming from the other side of the river into the land of Canaan. They were called Ivrim. They come from the other side. So that would be like an entry-level answer of why Abraham was called Ivri, because he's coming from the other side. Now, but the Midrash Rabbah says, Abraham the Ivri. Rabbi Yehuda said, this teaches us that the entire world was on one side, and he was on the other side. Well, this is not so difficult to figure out, in the sense that if with everything that we have read up to this point, that Abraham was unique. The whole world have believe in one philosophy, in one way of living. Many idols, different stories of creation, different kind of ways that God is involved with the world, how we need all these sacrifices to kind of bribe the gods into doing what we want and so forth. That was one belief. Abraham believed something totally different. He was Ivri. He was from the other side. He was totally different from them. So that is, I would say, a deeper understanding of why he was the Ivri. And that's why, my guess, something that it was said about him, he's coming from the other side of the river. He comes from the other side, but now Abraham can hold to that label with pride. Because you know what? I am from the other side. I'm not afraid to say that I have a different religion. I believe in a different God. I'm not afraid to say it. So yes, I am the Ivri. And that it was one of the ways to recognize Judaism as well. Hebrews, Ivrim. So, because I will say that we also sometimes feel that we are on the other side, right? That, and at least humanity multiple times made us feel that way. So, but we should be like Abraham. You know what? You're right. We have a different beliefs, and we are proud of what we believe. We believe is our ethics are great, our morals are great, our teachings are great, and we should be proud of who we are, the way Abraham was. So, there are many there are many things about this singularity of Abraham, on how he was unique. There is a story. Listen to this. It's all from the Talmud. This time is from the tractate Pesachim, page 118a. It says, when the wicked Nimrod, that was a king, threw Abraham into the furnace, because basically Abraham didn't want to give up the idols. This is back in his city before he left. He didn't want to give up the idols. So as a punishment, he was thrown into a furnace to burn him alive. So he was thrown into there, and then the story says, the angel Gabriel said before God, Lord of the world, I will descend and cool and save the righteous one from the furnace. God answered him, I am singular in my world, and he is singular in his world. It is fitting for the singular to rescue the singular. So in other words, God came to rescue Abraham, and he survived the furnace. And he got, at the time, it's a beautiful thing if you can read it in the Talmud. And he got even into more trouble for surviving the furnace that before he was thrown into the furnace. But it's an interesting story. But it's talking about the singularity of Abraham, and how Abraham was not afraid of being singular. He was not afraid to believe what he believed, even if he was thrown into a furnace. As he was basically, and think about it. This is what terrorism tries to do, right? It will try to make you scared to the point that you will abandon your ideals. And if you don't do, I will keep doing things to you, and out of fear, you will stop doing it. So Abraham didn't buy into it. I said, well, you will do what you have to do, and I will do what I have to do. And Abraham never said out of fear, yeah, idols are the right way. Idols are the truth. Nope, because he didn't believe on that. So he stayed strong to his beliefs, and he was rewarded for such courage. He was rewarded for such courage. That at the end of the day, that's the teaching of this. Because every time you read a midrash, don't get fooled by the story. Some people read the midrash and they said, that is not factual. That never happened. Abraham was never thrown into a furnace. Well, the midrash is not about facts. It's about truth. They're not the same. And I don't want to get too philosophical here. All what I can say is that a story can be truth without being factual. I think we have time for one more. Let's see what I have here. So, and Pirkei Avot, this is the Mishnah, will say Abraham was challenged with 10 tests and overcame all of them to inform us how great was the love of our father Abraham for God. And this is, I think it's a good point to leave it here, because the concept of tests, of divine test, is a very complex one. But the fact that they are called tests is something that reminds me, and I see it with my son. He's in grade 6, right? And he knows that if he doesn't pass the test, then he doesn't get promoted to the next level. So all these tests were a way to get promoted. But the problem here is that, well, if you don't really take the test, you cannot get promoted. So should you ask to be tested? That's a difficult question, especially when we are talking about life, right? We are usually scared of these divine tests. But what Abraham believed is, every test passed came with some kind of quote-unquote, quote, promotion. In the same way that every test that we take in life will bring either reassurance or promotion. So, interesting thing, right? Okay, so thank you everyone for coming up, for tuning in to this class. And it's great to be back. And hopefully, we're going to have a few lessons without interruptions. Thank God. Brenda, you said humanity is constantly tested. Yeah, yeah, it is. It is. It is. It is. Um, so yeah. So remember, if you want to catch again, the class is going to be rebroadcasted tonight at 8 p.m. 8 p.m. Central Time. And remember, we have a great program this weekend here at the Shari Zedek. Rabbi David Wolpe will be here in town talking about anti-Semitism and his own experience with anti-Semites. Trust me, he had a good fair of distress and harassment and problems for speaking out against anti-Semitism in the United States. So he's going to share all that with us here at the Shari Zedek. Unfortunately, the lectures won't be streamed. This is part, when you bring a personality of the caliber of David Wolpe, the contracts come with lots of small print. And one of the small print is unfortunately, we cannot record or stream his lectures, except that he is going to be speaking at all our services. So he's going to have a wonderful Dvar Torah on Saturday morning. By the way, that service, this coming Saturday, is going to start at 9:30, not at 10. We already know that it's going to be a longer service, so we want to start 30 minutes in advance. 9:30 on Saturday. And on Friday at 5, he's also going to have a little something there. So you can catch a little bit of his wisdom on Friday, the Kabbalah Shabbat, starting at 5, or on Saturday during the service starting at 9:30. Okay, it's at least something to enjoy the words of wisdom from Rabbi Wolpe. And if you are in Winnipeg, find a way to be with us. Until then, have a wonderful. Brenda, you said, let's see, will you be able to give us a summary of his teaching? Okay, I'll do my best. So now I will have to pay attention, Brenda. Yes, I will share with you. Okay, thank you everyone for tuning in. Remember, rebroadcast tonight, 8 p.m. Central Time. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Stay safe. Stay safe. Hope to see you soon.